Have you ever wondered what secrets are buried in the government's hidden files? We're talking about things so sensitive they're kept under lock and key for decades. Well, today we'd pulling back the curtain on one of them, a single photograph that the US military desperately tried to keep from the public eye for more than 60 years. This isn't just any old picture. It's a snapshot that tells a story so powerful, so unsettling, that it had the potential to change public perception and challenge the official narrative of one of history's most significant events. What does this photo show? Why was it deemed so dangerous? And what finally brought it to light? Stick around, because we were diving deep into the mystery of the photograph the military didn't want you to see. It's a tale of secrets, power, and the fight for historical truth. Let's set the scene. The year is 1945. The world is emerging from the shadow of World War II. 2 atomic bombs have just been dropped on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, forcing Japan's surrender and bringing the war to a definitive, yet terrifying end. The world celebrated the end of the conflict, but the true cost was just beginning to be understood. The official story from the US government was clear. The bombs were a military necessity, a decisive action to save countless American and Japanese lives that would have been lost in a full-scale invasion of Japan. The imagery released to the public supported this narrative. We saw mushroom clouds, flattened cities, and images that conveyed immense power and destruction from a distance. These photos were shocking, but they were also impersonal. They showed the what, but not the who. The human element, the individual suffering, was conspicuously absent. This is where our story truly begins. Amidst the chaos and devastation in Nagasaki, a young Japanese photographer named Yosuke Yamahata was on a mission. Working for the Japanese News and Information Bureau, he was one of the first journalists to enter the city the day after the bomb fell. What he saw was beyond comprehension. It was a landscape of utter ruin, a world populated by ghosts. For 12 hours straight, Yamahata walked through the wreckage, his camera a silent witness to the apocalypse. He captured over 100 photographs, documenting the raw, unfiltered aftermath. His images were not of buildings or mushroom clouds. They were of people, burned, dazed, and dying survivors wandering through the rubble, a mother breastfeeding her dead child, a young boy standing at attention, having carried his dead younger brother to a cremation pyre. These weren't images of strategic victory. They were portraits of unimaginable human suffering. Yamahata's photographs were published briefly in a Japanese newspaper, but they quickly caught the attention of the occupying American forces. General Douglas MacArthur's administration, which controlled Japan after the war, understood the power of these images. They were a direct contradiction to the sanitized version of events being presented back home. They showed the horrifying reality of nuclear weapons on human beings. So, they did what any powerful entity trying to control a narrative would do. They confiscated them. Yamahata's negatives, along with all other Japanese journalistic materials documenting the atomic bomb's effects, were seized under the US occupation's press code, which censored anything that could disturb public tranquility. For years, these images were classified, locked away in a US government vault, effectively erased from history. The world was only allowed to see the version of the story the military wanted it to see. So, what was in the specific photograph that was so sensitive? While the entire collection was hidden, one image has become particularly iconic and symbolic of the censorship. It's known as the boy standing by the crematory. The photo, taken by Joe O'Donnell, an American Marine sergeant photographer, shows a young Japanese boy, maybe 10 years old, standing ramrod straight. Strapped to his back is his baby brother, who is dead. The boy has carried his brother to a cremation site and is waiting his turn, biting his lower lip so hard it's bleeding to keep from crying. He stands there with a dignity and resolve that is absolutely heartbreaking. This image doesn't show a faceless enemy. It shows a child filled with grief and responsibility beyond his years in the direct aftermath of an American military action. It humanizes the enemy in a way that is deeply uncomfortable and profoundly moving. This was the threat. This photograph and others like it had the power to spark empathy, to raise questions about the morality of the bombing, and to complicate the simple narrative of a necessary evil. The government's reasoning for hiding these photos was rooted in the politics of the Cold War. In the post-war era, the United States was positioning itself as the leader of the free world, a moral beacon against the Soviet Union. At the same time, it was engaged in a massive nuclear arms race. The public needed to support this. Admitting the full, horrific, human cost of the atomic bombs could have undermined public support for nuclear weapons development. It could have fueled the anti-nuclear movement and given propaganda material to the Soviets. The photos showed that nuclear weapons weren't just a strategic tool. They were instruments of indiscriminate terror that obliterated men, women, and children alike. For a government trying to maintain a moral high ground while building an arsenal of city-destroying weapons, this truth was simply too dangerous to be public knowledge. The censorship was a strategic act of information control. So how did these images finally see the light of day? The story of their release is a testament to the persistence of those who believed the truth should not be buried. For decades, the negatives remained classified. It wasn't until the early 1950s, after the American occupation of Japan ended, that Yamahata's photos, which he had cleverly hidden copies of, were published in a Japanese magazine. But they remained largely unknown in the West. Joe O'Donnell, the photographer of The Boy Standing by the Crematory, kept his personal copies of the photos he took. He was so haunted by what he saw that he stored them away in a trunk for nearly 50 years. It was only in the 1990s, as he approached the end of his life, that he felt compelled to share them. He published a book in Japan, and gradually, the images began to circulate globally. The official release of the US government's confiscated archives happened slowly and quietly over many years, often as a result of declassification requests from historians and journalists. The full collection of Yamahata's work, seized by the military, wasn't returned to his family until decades later. The slow trickle of these images into the public consciousness has profoundly changed our understanding of the atomic age. They force us to confront the human consequences of our most powerful weapons. They serve as a permanent, chilling reminder of what is at stake. The very act of hiding them for so long speaks volumes about their power. Governments understand that history is often a battle of narratives, and the most powerful weapon in that battle is often not a bomb, but a picture. The story of this hidden photograph is more than just a historical footnote. It's a powerful lesson about secrecy, censorship, and the importance of a free press. It shows how official narratives can be carefully constructed and how inconvenient truths can be deliberately suppressed. When we look at that photo of the boy by the crematory, we're not just seeing a moment from 1945. We are seeing the very thing a powerful government tried to prevent us from seeing: the human face of war. It reminds us to always question the stories we are told, to seek out the hidden perspectives, and to remember that behind every major historical event, there are individual human stories of suffering, resilience, and dignity. These images were hidden because they tell a truth more powerful than any official report, a truth that, once seen, can never be unseen. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into a dark chapter of history. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think the government was justified in hiding these photos? Let me know in the comments below, and if you found this story as fascinating as I did, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more hidden histories. We'll see you in the next one.